Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Namaskar. Let us now begin with lecture 3 of the first module on our course Sales and Distribution Management. This module is the first module, as you know, and this deals with an introduction to Sales and Distribution Management. This particular lecture we will be speaking about the functions of sales executives and the roles played by sales managers. So, the different topics which are covered, we will be talking about the concept of a sales job, the changing roles of the sales force, the functions of sales executives and the roles played by sales managers. We will first talk about how the sales job is unique in its own way, how it is different from other jobs in the organization, and we will talk about the changing roles of the sales people. We will be speaking about the different functions that are performed by sales executives in an organization, and we will also talk about the different roles which are played by sales managers. So, let us start with this lecture. Now, the nature of the sales job, in fact the very nature, the very characteristics of the sales job is very different, it is very unique to other jobs in the organization. It is highly challenging, where the salesperson, the sales executives, the sales managers are perform varied roles. They are employers of the organization, they themselves are customers of the products and services. Very often they are their own company's customers. They are also members of the society, and so they play different, as a sales executive he plays different roles. He has the core responsibility of representing his organization, his company. He must plan activities. Very often the top management sets the targets, but the execution and fulfillment of the plans and the achievement of the targets lies on the responsibility of this lies on the shoulders of the sales executive, sometimes with supervision, sometimes without supervision. Now, in large organizations where the corporates have their headquarters, or and they have their regional offices, zonal offices, they have their different branch offices. In such organizations, the sales executive or the frontline salespeople, field salespeople do not have much of a role in the planning. Of course, they do provide some inputs with respect to estimates, or when the top management asks them for their inputs regarding the estimate of sales that could happen in a particular year. Apart from that, the sales executives or the field sales persons do not have much role in goal setting. This kind of an approach was also seen only in the bottom up approach, which we will talk of in subsequent sessions, where some amount of input is taken from the field salespersons, and this input is taken into account while targets are set by the top management and further taken care of by the middle management. But apart from that, or in cases where it is a top down approach, the sales executive had hardly any role. He does not have any role in the planning and in setting of goals or setting of targets, or as we said, the setting of sales quotas, but he is majorly involved in only implementing the strategies which have been formulated above, or in achievement of the targets which he is supposed to achieve in his territory. So he, and in this case, sometimes he receives supervision from his sales managers at the branch or at the regional level, and sometimes he does not receive much of supervision or much of guidance. And on the other hand, in smaller organizations where we do not have this kind of a big structure with the corporate or with the region and the zones and the divisions, etc. In such cases where organizations are small, the sales executive is just supposed to make his own plans and implement his own plans and set his own targets and achieve his own targets. So there he is hardly got any guidance, he hardly gets any direction, he hardly gets any direct guidance, and he must actually attain the targets on his own. The targets are set often by himself and his team members, and he must achieve them as far as possible so as to be able to get the organization keep going and sustain itself in business. Nevertheless, whether it's a big organization, large organization, or whether it's a small organization, sales executives must work judiciously for the benefit of the company, keeping in mind the concerns of the company, keeping in mind the concerns of the customers, and keeping in mind the social and ethical issues with respect to society, with respect to the environment. So here, if we look at it, he must actually he has different roles to perform as a salesperson, as an employer of the organization and a salesperson, as a customer himself, as a member of the society. So he himself is accountable to various stakeholders, and he must be very careful in performing the various functions so that in no way does he harm the interest of his organization or of the customers or of the society and of the environment. So in this way, his job is something which is very unique, because there are often conflicting interests between interests of the various stakeholders. For example, the company or the employer organization, his own organization, their interest would be profits, market shares, and the customer interest here would be lower cost products, high quality products, good quality products, and robust products, good after sales service, which could mean that the company may have to incur higher costs to give that both cost of the product as well as the after sales. So, but that cost and if the costs of the goods sold or manufactured by the company are high, in that case, keeping profit margin similar to a small profit margin, keeping so that the final prices are similar to competitive products. So the organization may have to forego its own profits. And so there is a conflict of interest. The employer organization would want, his own organization would want as much profits as much as possible, market shares as much as possible, sales as much as possible. The customer wants something which is a good product, a good value proposition at decent prices. And then the third important thing which we see here is the environment, where social and ethical and natural environment, we have to take care of the social issues, the ethical issues, the natural environment, so that our resources are not depleted, there is lesser damage to the environment, there is lesser pollution. So often the interests of the three stakeholders which we are mentioning here may conflict with each other. So in this case, what does the salesperson do? He must sell his product at profit. He must also satisfy the customers and give them give to a customer what he wants. He must also take into account the fact that his organization is not responsible for environmental damage or depletion of resources. So all these could be really pose a challenge. Meeting interests of all the various stakeholders, the conflicting interests of the various stakeholders could be a big challenge for the sales executive. Now, we'll come now to the changing roles of the sales force, and we'll see that what customers want is value. And to create value for customers, the job of a salesperson is just not limited to achieving the targets, but about creating this value, trying to see that what is the kind of benefit that he can give to the customer in return for the amount spent by the customer. So, it is about creating value for the customer. Value here being defined as a ratio of what the customer gives to what he gets. So, any and every customer would want a value proposition. What is a value proposition? The value proposition is the entire set of benefits or the bundle of benefits which a company can offer to the customer. So, it is the product and the services and the benefit at the right price, at the right place, at the right time, and continually providing satisfaction to the customer. Not once but always. So, the job of the salesperson here is not limited just to sell, but it is actually to create this value. And and this is important, because if the salesperson contributes to creation of value, the company would be able to get a sustained profit, long term profit. Now, how does the salesperson contribute to this value? His most important input would be in terms of understanding customer needs and wants, communicating with the customers, be it B2B or in case of B2C, he would communicate with the members of the trade channel, get feedback, get inputs about how the customer would be satisfied maximally. So, this is one way where he can actually contribute. What the kind of feedback that he takes, he gets and he communicates to his company. This kind of input could be immensely beneficial towards creation of value. The objective of the salesperson is not just limited to only maximizing benefits, but it is also minimizing the costs, which is beneficial for both customers as well as for the company. Now, when we are talking about value and we are talking about the ratio between inputs and outputs, on one hand we are talking about the benefit or the output for the customer, but we also have to think about the inputs, that the benefit that the customer gets out of the purchase is one part. The other part is what does the customer pay, and any and every customer would want to pay as little as possible and get as much as he can get. Now, to get this value or to be able to get maximum benefit by paying the minimum, is a customer's interest, but the company's interest would lie in earning as much profits as possible. So, where does the decision, where could be, what brings us to a situation where we have to think about the benefit that the customer gets and at the less price that he pays, and keeping in mind the company's motive or the objective of earning profits, large market shares. What becomes important is minimization of cost. Now, the salespeople also can help minimize the cost of the product by suggesting what actually is in demand, what is selling, what are products that sell, what are products that do not sell, so that those products which do not sell can be pruned rather than being kept in the product mix, and such products need not be manufactured, need not be stocked at with the retailers, and such products could be out. So that would be one way how costs are minimized. Another, and the non-profit making products can be pruned. Another way by which costs could be minimized would be by ensuring that the trade channel or the channel members are kept in control, and the kind of costs that are incurred in maintaining longer channels can be minimized, because a huge amount of money today, as we see, actually goes in maintaining a distribution channel. So, channel members who are efficient could stay and be a part of the distribution channel, but those who are not could be kind of removed. That again, input or feedback would come from salespeople, where the salespeople is able to provide inputs into what does customer prefer as a channel. Is it online? Is it offline? If it is offline, who are favored retailers? Who are favored stockists? So, who are the ones who give maximum business to a company? So, that feedback also would come from the sales people. Also, the salespeople, by minimizing their own selling expenses, can contribute to reduction in costs. As we have seen yesterday, that the gross profit, which we obtain from the revenue minus the cost of goods sold, can be which gives us the gross profit. This gross profit would actually is one parameter, but if we actually look at another important accounting formula, which is the net profit, the selling expenses subtracted from the gross profit will give you the net profit. So, if the selling expenses here with reference to boarding, lodging, travel, local advertising, or even entertaining clients, giving them gifts, etc., is reduced, again the costs would be minimized. So, the objective of salesperson is not only limited to providing value to the customer, maximizing benefits for the customer, but also lies in minimizing the costs, which would be beneficial for both the company as well as the customer. Once the costs are minimized, keeping in mind a certain level of profit margin, the company would still be able to gain a price advantage over competitors, and in this way they would be able to gain a competitive edge in the market. Okay. So, now talking about value addition to the organization, the sales staff should focus on maximizing profits for the company, but again, as I said, this should not be at the cost of overcharging customers. Payment should be collected, on time to maintain a healthy working capital for the company. It's very important that the company gets a good inflow of working capital, so that it is able to manage its production cycle, and there is no deficit of funds in any way. So, an important task of the sales force is to ensure that there is cash is received or payments are received by the from the various members of the channel to the company, and the receivables, maintaining a record of order to payment cycles as to when orders were received, when the consignment was delivered, and when payments were received. So, maintaining a record of this order to payment cycle is an important function of the sales force. The sales force also has a task of following up on payments with the members of the trade channel in the case of B2C. In the case of B2B, they also have to follow up with their major clients or B2B customers about receivables and about payments, so that the company is able to ensure a good working capital and can actually fulfill or can actually keep on going with the production cycle. So, proper credit history analysis should be done before offering huge credit payments to customers, and while this is done by companies, again the customer the salespeople have an important role to perform. Also, while negotiations are done, especially in the case of a B2B scenario, where prices may be negotiated upon, terms of delivery may be negotiated upon, receivables may be or cash receivables and timely payment of payments may be negotiated upon with with low interest rates or with longer repayment or payment terms. In such cases, companies seek inputs again from salespeople, because while on the one hand the company would want big clients, big customers, but on the other hand it would also want that payments are received on time, and hence salespeople are asked for such inputs to give information on the credit history analysis of the customers or the big clients, so that companies keep getting their inflow of funds and there is no risk of losing out on any money. Now, when we are going to talk about the various functions of sales executives, let us first talk a little bit about the levels of sales management positions. So, if we look at the sales level, we have the lower or the first level sales managers who actually operate at the territories and at the branch. And then we have the middle level sales managers who operate at the regional or the zonal level, and then we have those who operate at the national level and going up to the vice president and the CEO level. So we have the first or lower level sales managers, who are those who operate, who are either sales trainees or salespersons or sales representatives, and they function in the field, they work in the field, they take care of the grassroots. And then we also have people at the branch sales, as branch sales officers or area sales managers or district sales managers. So these are those who are the first or lower level sales managers. Then we have the middle level sales managers who work at the zonal level or the regional level or the divisional level. And then we have the top level sales managers, who are the national sales managers or the vice president sales, vice president marketing, or the president or the CEO of the company. So these are different levels of sales management positions. And as you see, at the lower level we have the sales executives, the sales trainees, the sales personnel. But as they move above, into from the middle to the top level, they assume more important titles and positions as managers, and their activities are not only relate to sales, but they relate to the marketing function. So while at the first and lower level we see more the dominance of the selling activity and the dominance of the sales function, as they move up the middle and the top level, we see marketing assuming a more important role. Now, what are the functions of sales executives? Sales executives have two broad sets of functions. They have the planning function and the operating functions. So let us discuss these a little more. Now, what are the operating functions? Operating functions here relate to Salesforce management. Yesterday we did discuss in the first lecture about Salesforce management, which means going in for an analysis of the manpower requirement, recruiting, selecting, training, motivating, performance appraisal, directing, guiding, setting up of quotas or sales targets, and territory management. And this is a big operating function which sales executives perform. Apart from that, they handle relationships with executives in other department in the company, because marketing or sales does not operate in a watertight compartment. They have their relationships with executives in the R&D, with executives in the operations and production department, with people in the finance department, in the purchase department, in the HR function, and so forth. So they also handle relationships with executives in other departments. They communicate and forge relationships with their customers, and they maintain these relationships, whether it is their actual customers, existing customers, current customers, or whether it is their prospects. And they also maintain relationships with their members of the trade channel, their wholesalers, the retailers, the brokers, the agents, the transporters, the warehouse providers, and so they also communicate with and coordinate with other marketing executives, not only in their branch but also in other branches, other districts, other territories, and so forth. On the other hand, the planning function more relates to the sales program, formulating the sales program, the strategies, the tactics to be employed, which we shall be discussing in the subsequent session. It also includes the organization function, which is how do you organize a sales department? Is it centralized or is it decentralized? Do they prefer a structure which is a more product based structure, or a customer based structure, or a geographical based structure, or a hybrid structure? And then also dealing with sales forecasting, sales budgeting, and the control element. So these are what constitute the planning function for sales executives. So the planning function is more strategic, while the operating function is more tactical. The planning function relates to setting up of targets and arranging for a sales organization to be able to achieve those targets. But the operating functions include more tactical functions of day-to-day dealing with customers, with clients, with members of with other executives in the organization, in the marketing department, outside the marketing department, and the entire Salesforce management. Now, the emphasis that the salespeople or the sales executives would sales executives would give to would have to give would depend upon whether they give importance to the planning function or to the operating function. The emphasis that they would have to give would depend upon, one, the size of the organization and the extent of operations. So, is the organization large or small? Is it dealing with domestic operations, or is it dealing with international operations as well? Is it does it have an extensive network, or does it have a very selective network? So, in terms of distribution channels, etc. So, that is one. Second is the kind of organization structure. Is it centralized? Is it decentralized? The kind of products and services that the organization makes and sells is also a factor which will determine whether sales executives must focus more on the planning function or on the operating functions. Apart from that, the type of customers, whether it is dealing with the B2B or the organizational buying, selling to industrial buyers, or whether it is selling to institutional buyers, or whether the major segment is the B2C, or whether it is the government buyers, who are the major types of customers. This would also determine whether a sales executive must focus on the planning function or he must focus on the operating function. Now, let us come to the various roles played by sales managers. So, today initially, as we spoke yesterday as well, that we have moved from a transaction approach to a value added and to a partnership approach. So, there has been a big change in the role of the modern sales manager. Instead of demanding, controlling, volume oriented sales manager, the modern sales manager acts as a team leader. He cannot be a boss to his salespersons. When we talk about a transactional approach, the orientation of the sales executive is just to sell. And if we talk about the traditional salesperson, his focus is to gain credit for himself, to earn incentives for himself. But if we go beyond and talk about value added partnerships with clients, or if we talk about consultative selling with clients, or if we talk about partnerships with customers and clients, in that sense the salesperson cannot behave in a traditional manner. He has to work in teams, he has to work with cross functional teams, he has to complement his skills with other people's skills, so as to be giving maximum value to the customer or to the client. And so what becomes important is that the success is shared by all team members. So, he cannot afford to be one who just sets targets and feels that salespeople should actually fulfill those targets. But then what his approach has to be is to work with his sales people as a team, to guide them, to motivate them, to complement their efforts with his own knowledge, with his own experience, with his own skills, and so share the reward, share the appreciation. And so the modern sales manager has to direct and advise his sales people by working with them and providing them with the required authority to take decisions. He must empower them rather than being a boss. And other than being a boss and ordering them, he must actually empower them, he must enrich them, and he must give them some level of independence to take important decisions, and of course within the prescribed limits, so that they work as a team and they rather than as a boss to the salespeople. Now, some of the important changes in the roles of the modern salesperson today are enlisted as follows, and we will be discussing them in the subsequent slide. He has to be a part of the strategic management team, a member of the corporate team, he has to work as a team leader, he has to deal with multiple channel members and sales and marketing channels, he must build good buyer-supplier relationships, and he must monitor, collect and disseminate information about changes in the macro and micro environment which are faced by a company. So, if we go a little more beyond, as a member of the strategic team, he must provide inputs for developing long-term marketing and sales plans, which would involve constituents of which would involve sales forecasting, planning and implementing sales plans, sales force management, controlling the sales budget, etc. And as a member of the corporate team, he has to work to achieve the various strategic and tactical objectives. It's the strategic objectives are set, but the implementation at the various levels and the achievement through tactical plans and objectives needs to be taken care of by the sales managers. He must work as a team leader. He must guide his salespeople to achieve the sales objectives, whether it is to gain revenues, market shares and profits for the company. He also has to deal with members of the trade channels, be it the sales force, be it brokers, be it commission agents, be it telemarketers, be it online channel platforms. So, he must also deal with these people and again build very important relationships, not only build but maintain buyer-seller relationships. CRM is or customer relationship management is being used in a big way with the advancement of technology and with the advent of the internet. Another important role that has to be played by the sales manager is monitoring, collecting and disseminating information about the changes that are taking place in a firm's macro and micro environment. So, sales managers must keep themselves abreast about information about the changes in a company's marketing environment with respect to opportunities, threats. They must share customer feedback. They must also provide inputs on the formulation of the sales targets. So, with this we come to a conclusion of this lecture on the roles played by the sales managers and the functions performed by sales executives. The references are still are as follows: Still, Kandev, Govoni and Puri, Sales and Distribution Management, Pearson Education; Havaldar and Kawale, Sales and Distribution Management, Text and Cases, Tata McGraw-Hill; Panda and Sehdev, Sales and Distribution Management, Oxford University Press; Futrell, Fundamentals of Selling, the McGraw-Hill companies. This brings us to an end of the third lecture on the introduction to sales management. I hope you have found this to be beneficial. Thank you.